When the priest asked if anyone objected, she stood. Not loudly. Not dramatically. She simply rose from her seat in the third row, and in that single movement, a billion-dollar wedding stopped breathing. The chandeliers were still glowing. The white roses were still perfect. Guests were still holding up their phones. But every eye turned away from the altar and toward her. Elena. Dressed simply. No diamonds. No spectacle. Just a calm expression and the most dangerous kind of smile. The kind worn by someone who already knows how this ends. At the altar, Richard's composure slipped for half a second. It was small, but it was real. And for a man who built his empire on control, that half-second mattered. If you're wondering why she was there, why she chose that moment, you need to go back 3 years. Because that wedding wasn't the beginning. It was the response. 3 years earlier, Elena had everything. A home she designed herself. A daughter she practically raised alone. And a husband the city described as unstoppable. Richard. For 12 years, she stood beside him. She hosted his investors. She proofread his speeches. She smiled through events where people praised him for discipline and vision. No one ever mentioned her. She believed in loyalty. She believed that marriage meant partnership. She believed wrong. One evening, Richard sat across from her at their kitchen table and said something that rearranged her life in under 30 seconds. I've met someone. No apology. No hesitation. Just logistics. He had been seeing the woman for 2 years. 2 years of conferences. Late meetings. Business trips. 2 years of lies delivered with perfect eye contact. Elena did not scream. She did not cry in front of him. She asked one question. Was there ever a moment you planned to tell me? Richard looked at his watch. That was her answer. The divorce was clinical. His attorneys were prepared long before she knew she needed to be. Assets structured through shell companies. Holding firms. Trusts. On paper, he looked modest. In reality, he controlled millions. The court saw numbers. Elena saw strategy. She lost the house. She lost the social circle. She lost access to accounts she helped build. Within 6 weeks, the younger woman moved into her old bedroom. That was the part that hurt the most. Not the money. The replacement. To everyone watching, Elena had lost quietly. What they didn't understand was this. She had been paying attention for 12 years. Grief changes people in 2 ways. It either breaks them, or it makes them observant. Elena became observant. In her small apartment, at a desk that barely fit near the window, she started making calls. Not angry calls. Strategic ones. She contacted an old colleague from before she paused her career. She hired a new attorney. Someone who specialized in recovering what was legally hidden. During 12 years of marriage, Elena had sat through hundreds of business dinners. Richard talked freely when he felt superior. He explained structures. Explained loopholes. Explained how to protect wealth. He assumed she wasn't listening. He was wrong. She remembered 3 minority stakes he transferred weeks before filing for divorce. On paper, they were undervalued. In reality, one of them had tripled in worth. A logistics software firm. And through a series of quiet, completely legal maneuvers, Elena acquired a blocking stake. Not control. But enough. Enough that any major expansion Richard was planning would now require her signature. Her signature. And she did something else. She commissioned a forensic review of the divorce settlement. They found discrepancies. Significant ones. Grounds for reopening the case. She didn't file immediately. She waited. Because timing is power. Then one morning, an ivory wedding invitation arrived. Embossed gold lettering. Elegant. Careless. Elena looked at the date. And for the first time in 3 years, she smiled. Back in the wedding hall, the ceremony continues. Richard stands at the altar. Confident. Polished. Certain this chapter of his life is closed. Until he sees her. The best man leans in and whispers something. Richard's fingers tighten slightly around his vows. The priest speaks. If anyone present knows of any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage. A formality. A tradition. Something no one is ever expected to answer. Elena stands. The silence that follows is heavier than noise. Guests freeze mid-breath. Phones lower slowly. A ripple moves across the room as heads turn in unison. Richard looks at her fully now. Not annoyed. Not embarrassed. Calculating. He is trying to understand what she knows. Elena speaks calmly. I won't take much of your time. Her voice is steady. Clear. Unshaken. She lifts a sealed envelope. This is a legal notice filed yesterday morning. It outlines material assets that were misrepresented during our divorce proceedings 3 years ago. A murmur spreads across the guests. She continues. A copy has also been delivered to the board overseeing the expansion deal Richard announced last quarter. Now the room shifts. Because investors are in this room. Colleagues are in this room. People who understand exactly what that means. That deal now requires my formal consent. Richard's face changes. For the first time in years, he is not ahead of the room. I haven't decided whether I'll grant that consent. A pause. I just wanted you to know that what you thought was finished isn't. Another pause. And that the person you believed had nothing left still has quite a bit. She places the envelope on an empty chair. Congratulations. I wish you both every happiness. And she walks toward the aisle. No screaming. No chaos. No spectacle. Just consequence. The wedding resumes eventually. It has to. Too many guests. Too much pride invested. But something has shifted. The photographs taken that afternoon look perfect on the surface. Yet in every frame, there is tension around the edges. A stiffness that wasn't part of the original plan. In the weeks that follow, Richard's expansion stalls. Attorneys call attorneys. Meetings are rescheduled. Negotiations begin. For the first time in his career, Richard is negotiating from a position he did not choose. Elena does not speak publicly. She does not explain herself. She does not defend her actions. She simply negotiates. Calmly. Within the city's quieter circles, the story spreads. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just carefully. A reminder that underestimating someone who has been silent for years can be expensive. Outside the wedding hall that afternoon, Elena had stepped into the light without looking back. She didn't feel revenge. She felt balance. The knot that had lived in her chest for 3 years loosened slightly. Not gone, but lighter. She returned to her apartment. To the desk by the window. To new projects already in motion. Partnerships forming quietly. Plans expanding beyond anything she once limited herself to. The wedding was never the end. It was a signal. A quiet declaration that the rules had changed. Because what Elena builds next, what she acquires, what she restructures, and who she becomes in a city that once watched her lose everything. That story is only beginning. And if you want to see how she turns leverage into legacy, stay with this story.